Creating a Podcast. Join 3 international students from Romania, Sierra Leone, and Rwanda as 3 journalists work together on the ins and outs of podcast creation. I saw that you recorded a quick interview. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, Mariam and Pooja and I were at a conference yesterday, and we went out to just get some air in the afternoon. And I'd got chatting to someone who actually was listening to a podcast, a complete stranger, and we'd had a really interesting conversation, but I just didn't have the courage to say, can we record it? And I was kicking myself because it would have been really good, but I just couldn't do it. I don't know why. And then Mariam came out and I was like, oh, I could cheat and just interview you. And it was really nice, actually, because we hadn't planned it. And it's something that we'd sort of mentioned earlier about knowing when to take time out. And I was deliberately taking time out from the conference because I was just overloaded with information. And the old me wouldn't have done that. The old me would have just stuck at it and continued taking notes and stuff. So I was kind of reflecting on my own change in behavior. And then she was talking about her. And the bit I loved was her spontaneous laughter. And then she said, I'm 24 and I'm exhausted. And I just thought that was such a gem. What did you think?
I thought it was a really good message, and I could listen to more. I could have kept listening.
And Nicole's saying she could have listened to more, but I'm wondering why.
Yeah, I could have listened to more because it was very honest.
The introduction is the beginning of putting everything together. What you want to really think about during your introduction. You can only, if you want it to be a few sentences, for example, I think what you really want to think about is not giving away the entire podcast, not saying we're going to talk about this and this and this. Maybe just say we're going to talk about interviewing tips, and you'll see what's coming next, that sort of thing. You want to give it a little bit of a mystery, for example.
Could we work on an introduction that also introduces the idea of Podium and News Decoder working together?
Yeah, most definitely.
So we can record that here as well. That'd be great.
Okay, Pooja writes for the introduction, great narratives come from great questions. The role of asking spot-on questions at the right time is very crucial. And this is what I am going to talk about today in our podcast, Asking the Right Questions. I will be joined by an award-winning journalist and podcaster. We will discuss interview techniques, tricks, and tips for developing good interviewing skills, and many more.
Welcome to our podcast. Today we're discussing the daunting experience of talking to people. Living in a world now where communicating with someone in person you hardly know is unheard of, we've decided to make it a bit easier for you to learn some basic ways to elevate your interview experiences and get the best audio possible. If you have a long introduction, already someone's like, oh, I don't want to listen to this. So just actually giving the information right away, I think is really important. I think that's what Pooja has done as well. Yeah, so what I had done is I put my hot tapes at the very beginning. For me, it was actually just 2 quotes. So it really depends on how you see your podcast. So what is, puts the person at the scene from the very, very beginning is maybe just putting in a little bit of a teaser of the rest. This is one of the tape logs I had for my interviews. So essentially I was listening to my interview. I was writing down the time that the person was saying something interesting that I really liked. And then I put down the scene that I think would be the best to add that quote in. So for example, I was talking about second generation identity, and at one of my scenes, so what I did was I asked specifically questions to my expert, my interviewee that I thought would have the best answers. And I asked them, how does one cope in your expertise with having an identity crisis? What can we do to help us integrate better into both cultures or both identities, essentially? And then when she gave that answer, I knew that specific answer would go well with the specific scene. So podcast scripting is, I think, very important. It does make it a bit easier while you're editing.